So meetings of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, image, and/or telephone number may be recorded. Scott isn't with us this evening, so Peg and I will move on. We've got the approval of the minutes for February 6th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yep, motion to approve the February 6, 2023 minutes.
And I'll second that. Did you have any comments, questions? Okay, then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay, motion passes. We've got general public comment.
No hands.
Okay, just checking. All right, we've got a 7 p.m. to discuss and vote to surplus and sell the police vehicle to Berlin-Boylston Regional School District. Do we have the chief here, or are you speaking to this, Kristen?
The chief should be here, and I believe Mary's already on it. Thank you, Mary. So I'll just give a brief introduction. Chief Shartner got a quote to surplus his vehicle, to sell his vehicle, excuse me, at a appraised price of $13,000. These schools were looking for a vehicle, and rather than have them purchase a brand new one, we could potentially sell it to them for the $13,000, which would help them, help us. And I will give it over to Chief Shartner to give a little bit more explanation.
So the 2016 pickup we purchased back in 2016, we bought it with the anticipation that it would go to another department within the town. At the time, cemetery was separate. So we figured if we bought it, it was going to be supervisor's car, mine was going to be low. So we got the 8-cylinder because it was durable, longevity in the vehicle. The highway has now taken over mowing of the cemeteries. So that's not a feasible place for it to go. I was at a crisis meeting 2 weeks ago with Dan at Toronto. He had asked about an old cruiser. The particular old cruiser that we have, I would not suggest for the town or the school district to have to maintain that. The pickup truck is up for replacement in July. I'd have no issue whatsoever getting rid of the pickup truck as early as March if the board approves to send it over to the school.
Okay, Peg, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, Eric, so I'm going to be nice to you. No questions.
You got my red on.
There you go.
Okay, then, do I hear a motion to surplus and sell the police vehicle to BBRSD?
Motion to sell the 2016 pickup, 8-cylinder, approximately $13,000 to Berlin-Boylston Regional School District.
And I'll second that motion.
And just to clarify, it is over $10,000, so the board would have to vote to surplus it as well. I don't have the authority to do that.
Okay, so that's okay with you, Peg?
Yep, fine.
Okay. Then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, I'll coordinate that with, I gotta coordinate with the fire department, have them strip it. I'm not gonna send it to the dealership. They charge about $1,000 to strip the vehicles. They take all the blue lights out of it and some of the equipment, but I'll start making arrangements with the fire department to do that for us, and we'll get it to them by the second week of March.
Okay, sounds good. You gonna stick around for the general department update?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You can go ahead, Chief.
You want me to start on that? All right. Okay.
Yeah, you might as well.
All right. In the month of January, the department handled 1,623 calls for service, 16 cases involving criminal charges, 16 motor vehicle crashes, 5 with injuries, 120 motor vehicle stops, and 56 citations issued. As you saw on social media and probably heard, on the 13th, we did a shelter in place at Berlin Memorial School for an incident occurring in Boylston. It was out of the abundance of caution. Once we made some communication with Boylston PD, we were able to let BMS go. It was about a 10-minute delay in the day. So I think we did fairly well with that. Once we cleared there, we had a report of a missing person out in Highland Ridge, between Wheeler's Garage and Highland Ridge. After we called in all our resources, we set up a perimeter, and while setting up the perimeter, one of our officers found the gentleman up by Coburn and Randall Road. So he made it pretty far. So fortunately, it was a great outcome on the 18th, which you probably also saw via, actually, you were emailed the operation we did on serving a high-risk warrant on the south side of town. And you know, the report says it took about 22 minutes for the person to finally come out, take him in custody. Nobody was injured and ended peacefully. Detective Trangone finished his 3rd week-long leadership class with Leaders Helping Leaders Network. The class was made possible by the Municipal Police Training Council. I paid $995 2 years ago to go through the class, and the MPTC has now picked it up. So he was the 3rd officer to go through. So now it's Officer Andre, Officer Belleville, myself, along with Detective Trangone, have all completed his series of 3 classes. Fantastic leadership management classes and servant officer class. Fantastic classes. Traffic Safety Advisory Committee met on February 8th. We spoke. I know we bought those signs to place all over town. I think we've come to the conclusion that the 2 in Carterville are going to stay in Carterville. We would like to seek $2,500 to modify those 2 signs into solar. The quote I got would be around $2,200, but I just want to make sure we have enough because my quote is 3 months old. But it'd be nice to put those on solar. If they do prove to be successful, then I would look to do the other signs as well. But you know, that's something we're going to discuss with the board, you know, possible use of ARPA funds. Let's see, ACO, there's 12 calls total for the month of January. The police officers handled 7 without needing assistance of the ACO, and 5 of those calls were referred to the ACO. I skipped over. Our 2022 cruiser finally arrived at the end of January. So that is in service. I did once again have to cut more equipment out of it because when we budget for these things in November and we get them 15 months later with inflation, we end up losing. It's a losing battle with the rate that those cars are going up in price, as well as the equipment. Drones have arrived. I went to Warwick, Rhode Island, and picked up the drones. They've arrived. We have a meeting on the 20th of February next week, and to move forward and set up training for the officers. The vehicle update was being built 2 weeks ago, and it should arrive 1st or 2nd week of April.
Okay.
Eric, that's the Tahoe?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I could have a black one or I could have a red one right now, but
Not a blue one?
no blue. One blue one came in and it was scoffed before I could say anything. So you know, they're plentiful right now. If you want white, black, or red, they're plentiful. I'm not I like to kind of try to stick to our color scheme and not have a bunch of max cars if we don't have to.
Okay, any other questions for Eric?
Eric, just a question on, and I know I said I wasn't going to ask you questions, but I lied. No, just a cost efficient question.
Yeah.
If there's going to be $2,500 for the streets, for the speeding signs.
Yeah.
Is there any way or anything that you could look at to maybe make the pedestrian signs solar as well? Because no one sees them anymore. They just blink.
Yeah, I mean, the pedestrian signs are on a solar panel right now. From what I hear, I think there is a new set of pedestrian signs waiting to be installed at the DPW. If I wasn't mistaken, I think we do have a more sturdier set. Those were put in there temporarily for 2 years. And I'm gonna talk to Fred about that, because it was my understanding that we do have an actual set of legitimate signs that
Okay.
can go in the center of town.
When they go in, can you guys sit there for at least a week or so and make people aware? I just have a feeling people are just gonna blow. They're just gonna blow right through them like they do now.
Yeah, I mean, same thing to do with the traffic barrel that
Yeah.
was out there, and the sign that was out there that went missing. It's probably in the bed of somebody's pickup truck after they hit it. And yeah, it's been a fun adventure for 27 years there.
Okay. Is that it, Peg?
Yeah, I told Eric I was gonna be nice to him, so gal of my word.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Eric.
I'll be prepared for March then.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Bye, Eric.
I think next we have the town administrator's report or any correspondence.
I think we, if it's okay, Chris, have a quick update from the fire EMS chief.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
All right. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how is everybody?
Good. How's it going?
So far, so good. I'm sorry I don't have as a detailed report as the police chief at this point. My first couple weeks have been very good. I've met with most of the staff in the fire department. I have a few stragglers that I need to catch up with. I did a group meeting with my officers and all of the staff, and I'm doing individual meetings to meet all the staff individually in my office just to talk about their goals and objectives and where they want to be and where they're trying to go. Call volume has been fairly consistent over the last couple of weeks. We've had some busy times with back-to-back calls coming in involving 495. Staff-wise, we've had 2 people that just completed courses in their instructor coordinator, which is a good step forward in leadership and company officer development. And from an equipment standpoint, we had 2 shipments of equipment that came in for the airbag rescue equipment that we got through grants, which is we're waiting to go on the apparatus after we train the department. And then we also received barricades and cones that will go in the trailer for road closures and other disasters that may occur from storms from emergency management. I've spent time meeting most of the staff at the police department and the highway department and at town hall, which has all been great to meet everybody and to be able to say hi and see who I'm working with. And we have a great team here in Berlin, which is great. So that's been my first 2 weeks that I've been here, kind of trying to assimilate with the department and get involved with the invoicing and paperwork aspect of things.
Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to meeting the residents in town too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got plans to start doing that, to get out to see them, to get out and meet for coffee and get to some of the community events to say hi to everybody and get my name out there and my number and encourage people to come in and meet with me and see me.
Good, good. Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, I'll give Mike an early Valentine's Day present too. I won't ask him any questions.
Well, thank you. I owe you then.
Yeah, well, Mike, I didn't give you the Spanish Inquisition when we met you, and I'm not giving you the Spanish Inquisition now, but welcome, happy to have you. Looking forward to getting out and meeting folks in town, 19 Carter General Store. I
Yep.
know that you're not in the area yet, but you know what? There's always the dump.
Yes.
On a Saturday.
Well, I will be moving down as of March 1st. I do have a place secured that I'll be staying. So my wife
Nice.
and I will be down on March 1st.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, welcome to town.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good week.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye,
Mhm.
Mike.
All right, now I believe it's time for the town administrator report or any correspondence.
Sure. So we will talk more about budget and town meeting in later on in the agenda. So I don't want to get too much into that. But we have received free cash certified. So many thanks to our financial team, especially June and Molly and everybody who carried this across the finish line. We have been certified at $3,077,287. It is important to remember, however, this is an atypical amount because it reflects significant decreases in one-time spending due to COVID. Everybody was very careful with their spending during COVID, and there were also a lot of projects that weren't able to get done, you know, given everything that was going on. So next is procurement items. We have great news. I've signed a letter of engagement with Roselli Clark and Associates for audit services for 22, 23, and 24. They have come in at 20,000, 20,500, and 21,000, which we had budgeted 26,000 for, and the current firm we were using came in at 37,000. So I was quite pleased with these folks. June and their principal, Mr. Roselli, had an extensive conversation, very pleasant to deal with. Seems like they'll be great to work with. They've actually already reached out and started requesting documents for the FY22 audit. So that will be getting underway shortly. So really excited. And the fact that they'll go up only $500 a year is great, and they're already coming in, at least for this year, at $6,000 under what we budgeted. So $6,000 under what we budgeted. So that's wonderful. We also have the town office HD and hybrid meeting room upgrade out to bid. We've gotten 6 requests to obtain the scope of work, and the quotes are due this Wednesday. We actually may have to extend that out a week. I've gotten a request today, actually. Somebody wants to come and view and measure the space. And so if that's the case, I do need to open that opportunity up to some of the other bidders. My concern is if we don't do that, we may not get bids. So I'm talking to Brittany and Roger right now to see how they want to handle that, because the person who was most interested in, you know, bidding has been reaching kind of back out and said, you know, I need to see it. I can't really make a bid. And I'm concerned there may be other bidders that feel that way. So an extra week might be helpful. Also, highway road materials and services bid is out. Now I think we're up to well over 15 requests. So this is for road paving services in town and paving at South Cemetery as well, which we rolled into that project. So those bids are due Monday, February 27th at 1:00. And I am also working and met with recreation today on the tennis court, recreation court RFP. So we mapped out some dates for that. And it looks like we're going to have that due in early March. And hopefully we will be able to select a contractor and bring it before you at one of your later March meetings, so that can get queued up for this year's construction cycle. We would put in it that the project would need to be complete by June 30th, unless otherwise extended due to extenuating circumstances. So procurements are moving forward. I'm breathing a little easier there. We are also still working on the library director and the highway admin. I did have the pleasure of meeting with the Lions Club last week and got some great information about some of the issues going on in town, some of the things that they help out with. And working with regional dispatch, I've been sort of given the chairmanship of the Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch Administrative Committee. It was our turn. And so I'm working closely with Executive Director Ann Camaro on a number of items over there. And the IAC, the Insurance Advisory Committee, met regarding health insurance. We dealt with some soil importation discussions. And as we discussed at last week's meeting, I amended and submitted the revised employee policy manual to legal counsel for them to take a last review over everything and make sure it looks okay.
I did see that you attended the IAC meeting,
Yes.
and is there, what did they discuss? I just wanted a brief update because I could not make it.
Sure. So mostly the discussion did center around putting together some type of policy and funding mechanism, as the board had discussed a few months back for OPEB. And we did come up with a draft policy that is kind of being circulated around the committee for review right now. We're going to meet again. I think it's the week after next. Although it might be later on this week. Sorry, weeks kind of blend together, to talk a little bit more about that and really kind of nail down what the policy would be and, basically how we, would be able to fund it. So that was the crux of the conversation. Still waiting on insurance information for FY24 in terms of rates. But I do have a meeting set up on Monday, the 27th, with our new treasurer collector and Tara from Maya to discuss those rates.
Okay, good. Any questions, Peg?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as you get more information from the AIC, if you could pay it forward. I mean, when they had met with us, they had a number of options as to what could potentially be a funding source, but haven't seen or heard of anything. So obviously all that's going to need to be vetted before any, for at least for me, for any type of vote of approval. So I can sit and pick at it for that. Kristen, on the recreation for the court,
Mhm.
where you said, maybe in March, we'd have be able to decide and complete by June 30th. Is there any way that we can expedite a decision as to that brown barn next to the pond? Because, gee, wouldn't that make for more awesome parking spaces? So I would kind of hate to have the barn stay up and then 2 years late, from now we go, oh, we can take the barn down and oh, look, it's going to cost us $100 bazillion to get it paved when we could have rolled it in.
So I've just started looking at the RFP or IFB rather today. I assume that's not included in it.
Probably not.
Probably
Okay.
not, but I know the idea of building review has been kicked down the road multiple times. Just thinking that this is a perfect opportunity to either say, leave it up or tear it down and include it in. And I'm sure that you're going to need Fred, because I think he has stuff in it. Historical, I don't know. I don't know about the age of the building. It's probably not going to be an easy decision, but just didn't know if that was taken into consideration.
Okay. I don't know that it has. I can certainly circle back with Bob Holmes, who I met with today. My only concern, I guess if it would have to come down, maybe that's not as much of a funding as opposed to a labor issue.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I don't want to slow up the rec RFP because their concern is they're applying for some additional funding from CPA, like for the pavilion, and they're hearing people say, well, what's going on with the courts? Why,
I know.
So
I know.
I'm trying to, and I've held them up given everything going on. So I don't want to delay them too much, but let me talk to Fred and Bob Holmes and see what we can come up with, hopefully concurrently, about the Brown building.
Yeah, and obviously, if it's going to take an act of God to get people to decide what to do about the building, I don't want to hold it up either. I want to see people back on those courts and playing basketball and playing tennis and not playing fish the ball out of the pond. So, that's fine. Leave
Okay.
that discussion for another day. Do you have any procurements left? Are there any
Yes.
more left to do?
There is the roofs at the town offices, which is next on the list, as well as the old old fire station.
Yep.
And there are a few other ones. If you give me a second, I can pull up the list here. Got public safety radio, the balance of that project. which is going to be a big one. Facilities assessment. And this is sort of procurement, but that Berlin Memorial School lease,
Yep.
having to kind of finish that up. And then, let's see. What else?
That's not bad. I
That's a
mean,
good
I don't want you to go down the list. I mean, that's pretty decent where, hopefully, again, you can merge the two roofs together and, you're looking at efficiencies.
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
say
it-
we've gotten, once we get the rec court one done this week, and my goal is to do one a week. We're about halfway through the ones that we had. So we're moving.
All right, yeah, and as soon as you get the IAC stuff, because I'm already hearing comments of, oh, we're promised that money and we're gonna get that money, and I'm thinking, oh, you need to slow down on your horses, people, because we're not there yet. So.
So is that
yeah, anything-
residents or is that residents you're hearing from, or is that employees?
Residents,
Okay,
Okay. Yeah,
I
I mean,
just don't wanna put false hope and false promises and misinformation out there that this is like a slam dunk. And all I've said is,
There's
I
a
haven't seen
process.
anything, so it could be a yes, it could be a no, it could be a maybe, it could be anywhere in between. Stay
It has to
tuned.
go to town meeting too.
Correct,
They have
correct,
the say,
correct,
before it even gets there, we'll have some discussion, I'm sure.
right. Yep,
and what I said to the group, just so you guys know, is I said it came up as part of the ARPA kind of wish list that I put together, kind of haphazardly. And, the feedback was, you need a plan, you need a policy, we need something to look at so that a decision can be made.
cool.
Right.
All right, thanks, that's it.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to old business and the LSP testing, options and solutions.
So I'm actually going to ask if we can pass this over until the 27th meeting, as I have not heard back from the gentleman, Mr. McManus, yet, who's connected up with DEP.
Okay, put that in your notes for Scott then, will you?
I sure will.
Okay. And we've got the FY24 budget discussion.
Yes. So I just have a couple, let's see. Sorry, I'm opening that right now. Just have a couple of items on here. So, let me open this up and show you where we are at. Sorry, slow with technology here. Come on.
Do you have the little ball going around in a circle?
No, I'm trying to share the screen, but because I'm on my laptop and it's a small screen, I'm like split screening it. So it's okay. There we go. Now I have the little ball.
Okay,
Okay, if you guys can see it. So June and I sat down last week and went through revenues based on the first half of FY23 and what we could potentially increase. And I have to say, there's not a lot of wiggle room from where we are in 23 to where we want to go in 24. We basically looked at local receipts, and we had some areas we felt we needed to lower a little bit based on the numbers that were coming in, and some areas we felt we could raise a little bit. Overall, we picked up about $5,000 in local receipts. Offset receipts are $215 higher because that's the transfer station taking a little bit more there, but that's being paid out in salary. Receipts for reserve for appropriation is a little bit higher because the cemetery receipts came in at $13,550. So the last year they were $11,850. So we can pick that up for sure for FY24. So there's a little bit more there. And then I will tell you, state aid is highlighted in yellow. It's the first one highlighted in yellow because we don't have those numbers yet. So all I can do right now is level fund. Oh, that just got bigger. Level fund from FY23. And then the other revenue sources, really, if I go down to the next page, That's really dependent on some numbers that I still do not have. So the numbers that are still kind of up in the air are, as you can see on the second page, the state aid numbers, which I just mentioned. And then we still haven't figured out the capital for BMS and the debt service for Tohoto, which I believe it's going to be around that number. So I've level funded it from last year, but those are really kind of the only variables that we're down to at this point in the budget.
When did they say they might have numbers for you?
So they're stuck in the same situation that we're stuck in that a lot of their revenue comes from the state. So
Right.
they're hoping March when the state comes out with their numbers. And Governor Healy has said she will try to do it in as early of March as she possibly can, with some potential estimates in late February. But it's really dependent on them. So we did
Right.
meet with the schools with the FinCom last Wednesday, and it was kind of a rather sobering discussion, because I basically ran some numbers while we were at the meeting. They've presented us with two options that they were considering for their budget. One was a 12% and 13% increase for BMS and Tohoto respectively, based on what they're calling a level service budget. That does largely include mandated increases in special ed. And then a 23% increase for BMS Tohoto, that they're saying is an above level service, but needed to basically maintain their services that the students are really asking for and needing as technology evolves, etc. So I ran some quick numbers during the meeting and shared with both the school committee members and the central office folks that were there, as well as the FinCom, that in order for us to go to 12% and 13%, the budget would have to be cut by the town side of the budget would have to be cut by approximately $300,000 to $350,000. In order to go up to the above service at the 22-23, we're talking about a $900,000 to $950,000 cut. And just for perspective, the police department budget alone is $1.2 million. So you're basically talking almost the equivalent of the entire police department budget. And as I expressed to Carol and Nancy and the school committee members that were there, I'm a public school graduate. I'm a very big proponent of school. I understand the special education mandate and the need for giving students what they need to be successful. My issue is I just don't have the funding and I don't see where to get it from. And they noted that their budget would have to go into either an override or excess levy capacity. I can't speak for Boylston on this and what their financial situation is. Berlin does have excess levy, so that would result in a tax increase, which is difficult to predict because we have that split tax rate, which already went up on taxes this year for residents because of the commercial devaluation, particularly the $1 million devaluation at the Solomon Pond Mall. And it's very difficult to estimate what that's going to be in FY24. So we're looking at putting together some type of range for the voters. But I did actually hear from Nancy Koniski over the weekend that, kind of based on our conversation, they are going to put forth the level services budget, the 12% and 13% budget. That is what they are recommending that the school committee make a vote on, and I believe it's their meetings on the 28th. So if we're not talking about the 22-23% budget anymore, it narrows down kind of the numbers that we have to run in the scenarios we have to look at. So that's something that June and I will be looking at. The state does have a number of calculators for split tax rates and increases, but they, are aware that it would result in tapping into that excess capacity and an increase. I'm very concerned about special education funding And the fact that the state really doesn't step up to the plate when it comes to that critical funding source. And it's something that I think is important, especially with a new governor and a new senator, to put on their radar. So I actually have reached out to our state rep and our state senator and shared my concerns about funding for that critical need. I'm also meeting Wednesday with the Boylston Town Administrator to kind of talk about their process and where they're at. And then the FinCom will meet again Wednesday evening. And I know Mary Porter from the FinCom also reached out to our legislators to express this concern, and Boylston had reached out to them as well. In fact, they came to a Boylston either FinCom or Select Board meeting recently. So it's on everybody's radar. We're trying to work together to find a solution for it. My biggest concern is making everyone aware of what the ramifications or financial impact would be if we went to 12 or 13%. Because unfortunately, the way the budget is structured right now, it cannot support that, as previously mentioned. So that is kind of where we're at. I wish I had better news for everybody, but I will be working closely, as I said, with June and the FinCom and Nancy and Carol over at the schools. And we will just keep moving forward and see what we can do.
I'll be interested to hear how Boylston is going to handle it.
Me too. Their town administrator, April Stewart, has very generously offered to come over. So she'll be coming by on Wednesday. We'll have a good conversation, I think, and see where they and their select board FinCom and, kind of are at with everything.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Kristen, for the folks that are watching, and I'm making these numbers up, just making them up, not true, not it. So let's say out of the 12%, 8% is special education. We have no option. Of course, we need to provide services. So we'll say, yep, we're only going to give you 8%, no more. That's it. Boylston turns around and says, okay, we can pay, the full 12%. We'll give you the special ed plus whatever else it is that you need. Here's a desk, here's a 3D printer, etc. So you have one town at, I'm going to, stop you at like 8% and the other one's saying 12%. So
You
what?
can't do that. You can't do that. You have
So
to
then what happens?
You go by student assessment. However many students we have, we pay that our proportion. However many students they have, they pay their proportion. So it's usually 1/3 to 2/3 around there. But, that's why if, for example, we cut the budget of say $100,000, then they have to do 3 times that. So they're actually going to cut $400,000 out of their budget. So it's always fair as far as student assessment. But it's a tough pill to follow, to swallow, because I think one year Boylston tried to pass an override to pay for their share and they couldn't pass it. So then they had to cut their portion and they had to cut an additional portion for Berlin so that it was fair.
Right. And it's my understanding as well that the lower amount applies to both towns. So, one town approves 12%, one town approves 8%. You do have to go with the 8%. And our process locally would be, and the FinCom was pretty clear on, their process of how they're going to go about it. They want to present a balanced budget. Mm-hmm. And if the school wants to make a motion to change that budget, increase that budget on town meeting floor, they can, but a motion without a FinCom vote requires a vote by ballot. Mm-hmm. That would take place at town meeting.
So, but then there is a process if the towns can't agree. And I know it could result in a 2-town meeting, which means both towns have one meeting together.
Yeah, and the school, I just got a copy of the BBRSD agreement that is signed between the towns that gets approved by DESI. And that's something I'm going to be kind of looking at and going through so I can get the specifics on how that process would work.
It might be in Mass General Law too.
It very well could be, but I'm thinking it'll be referenced in that agreement one way or the other. So hopefully I can,
Great.
get it out from there.
Yeah, I don't remember any specifics in the agreement, but
Okay.
it's been a long time. So,
Oh, no, very well could be. I have to look at MGL. So
yeah.
So is there like a plan D that's potentially in place or being thought of to say, there's no way out, we have to pay this money, we have to cut $350,000 from the budget as to areas that might be potentially tapped, and again, kudos to all the departments, they all came in, either flat or very slightly above, but kind of, are they being made aware to say you might want to take this back and don't send me anything, but just look to see if there's something that you can cut?
it's a really good question because I've been thinking about that and trying to figure out if there's even any way we could get to cutting $400,000.
No.
I mean, I think I would have to almost force those recommended cuts upon the departments and say, okay, you're cutting X number of officers, you're cutting, I'd have to look at the larger budgets because you're going to need to make big ticket cuts across the board. You almost can't say, okay, a 5% cut across the board will fix it because, then you're not going to be able
budgets are
to
so
run
different.
everybody. Yeah. And some of them are so tight and razor thin, especially like the small town hall offices. All of a sudden now, okay, well, now we talked about the print cartridge for the veterans office, like, well, now I can't, print things. So it would be pretty catastrophic. And I think it was good that the school committee acknowledged that without tapping into excess levy / override, they wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I could certainly try to put something together. I've kind of been sort of trying to figure out the best way to do that. But I mean, short of those big ticket items,
What are they spending from their special ed account? I forget what it's called.
they only have $15,000 in that special ed stabilization account.
That's because it's a year
It's
behind.
new. Yeah.
And it's probably maybe a student or two that have just moved into town and, then you don't have the money from the previous year
Right.
caring for those students.
Well, and it's exactly. And so it's a year behind on reimbursements, 75% reimbursements a year behind, as you know, Chris. So, if you have a couple of students with a high level of special needs that come into district in this year, your budget is based on last year's money that comes in this year. So you're not able to offset that need. And if you're going to need it next year, because you have students coming up from lower grades, and they made a point that they try to serve students in districts whenever possible, but there are situations where they're just not set up to serve those students. And it is quite costly to do the out of district tuition, not just the tuition itself, but transportation, which has to be funded as well.
Well, I know when I talked to you about this, I don't know, last week or something, Kristen, I was just saying that it's very hard. I don't know whether the school committee understands that they're going to be pitting, school folks against the department, the different departments. And, you'd hate to see that happen.
I
So
agree.
They will go back and take another look, like Peg said.
Yep.
They really should. I've never seen an increase like that go to town meeting.
No, and that's why, Chris, and I think it's important, and I know that it's difficult to say, hey, taxpayer, you're going up $8,612, and you taxpayer, you're going up $3,409. But to say, based on generalities, if this budget is passed, you can expect a 10% increase, a 20% increase, so people can sit there and at least know. So before they go yay or nay, they're gonna be able to make an educated decision, because I just don't want, the town
Well,
offices
and
to
it-
get bombarded when the taxes come out and they realize, holy crap, now where am I gonna come up with that extra, $5,000 every 6 months? And guess what? Now I'm gonna be put on a payment plan, in town, so.
Well, I do feel badly because it really is a lack of the state being able to pay more for special education students. That's really where the problem lies. But now you have to find an immediate answer for the budget.
Right. And this is a long-term problem that, right, like you said, we need a short-term solution that isn't there. But one of the things I mentioned to the state reps is I was reading an article that since 2018, the state has brought in over $4 billion in cannabis revenue. And the state gets 17% of the 20% tax on that. Where is that going, and why isn't some of it being allocated to education? Some of it goes to mass building for building schools, but not for actual education purposes itself. And that's a huge cash cow for the state.
And
It's no different than Eric getting, hey, you have to have your officers do this, that, and the other thing. And oh, by the way, we're not gonna pay for it. So, oh, well, so sad, too bad. It's mandated, you gotta do it.
right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
even the money that we had to vote on whether it would go to roads or schools.
Yeah.
I really didn't like the fact that they put them together, because I generally don't see additional funding going to schools. I see it going to roads, but we do need something other than whatever it is, the penny or something, extra penny we pay in tax that will go to school building assistance
Right.
or something like that.
Well, and like I said, and Carol and Nancy were very open to this, as well as the school committee members that were there. I said, I'd really like to work with you all and see if we can work something out before it gets to town meeting floor, because as you mentioned, Chris, you're not only pitting school and town against each other, but you're also pitting parents against seniors. And that's not a fight that I think anybody really wants to
Nobody
see.
have.
No,
Because the school
no,
wants to have the support of all residents.
absolutely.
And
And
it's not in their best interest.
if there was unlimited funding available, it'd be great. But I mean, when a third of, Berlin's residents are on seniors and the food pantry is actively used, I have a lot of concerns about raising taxes.
Yeah. Well, let's hope there's some good news that comes along soon.
Yep, we'll keep plugging away at it and see what we can do.
Okay, did you want to talk about the May annual town meeting?
Yes, so right now we have, I believe it's 33 articles. I'm just trying to get back to my Google Drive here, which of course I just closed. Sorry, give me 1 second. There are a number of kind of housekeeping articles that have been on the agenda, been on the warrant, that since what they call MuniMod, the Municipal Modernization Act of 2016, most of those are not required to be voted on anymore. And some of those include things like authorizing the treasurer to borrow money, authorizing the select board to hire, accepting the town report. Those types of things you actually don't have to vote on anymore. And I know you've kind of voted them as a slate block, but I think because the article numbers are already up there, and I just pulled it up. So I am up to 32, and I believe I had to add one more. So I think I'm up to 33, and that's without those 7 or 8 housekeeping articles. I understand that it's tradition, but I would like to kind of keep it short if at all possible.
Yeah, well, you may just have to have a quick meeting, quick meeting with Barry.
Sure.
Explain this is why we're going to cut this, because town meetings are getting to be they're like 2 nights every year. It seems like.
Right, and the whole point of the Municipal Modernization Act was to make it less cumbersome regulatorily, which isn't a word, but in terms of regulations for cities and towns to speed things up and make life simpler and less bureaucratic.
Yeah,
So
I think we have cut out a few articles, but
yeah, we cut out a few, and I mean, there are no, I would say, huge surprises on here. I did include the 114,000 from ambulance receipts reserved for the overage for the new ambulance that we talked about that was secured with the ARPA funds so that the order could be placed in. We don't anticipate the invoice until early to mid FY 2024 rather. So we can certainly allocate that funding at town meeting. Establish a revolving fund for fire detail, some payment in lieu of tax agreement regulation that needs to be adopted. Some requests from the Board of Assessors for some acceptance of Mass General Law for adjusted asset and income limits. Received a request from the Bullard House Committee to adopt a preservation restriction, which will help them apply for a grant from Mass Historic. All the regular CPA, budget, capital items for 24.
it doesn't seem like to me that there's anything that needs to be cut at this point.
No, and I mean, there's a couple things that I don't know if they will be ready. One would be River Bridge, another would be the like-kind soils. We're working on those. And then planning submitted 3 articles, the planning board, an amendment to the zoning district map, and 2 acceptance of private ways as public roads, and that's Gibbs Road and Pollard Road. Pollard Road? Did I say that right?
Pollard.
Pollard, thank you. I read it as Poland first, and I'm like, wait, I'm spending too much time with June. Pollard Road.
So, Kristen, a quick question on those 2 acceptance of a private way as public road. What does that do to highway, police, fire, et cetera? Does that put obviously more roads for them to maintain traffic, et cetera, et cetera? So
Yeah, so there's road maintenance, plowing, maintenance, upkeep, paving, pothole repair, all of that comes the town's responsibility.
so more costs to the town. Okay.
Correct.
And the 3 items, and I'm looking at my screen, so sorry if I'm not looking at anyone. So the 3 items that are up there that are listed for free cash. Again, that's a town vote. It's not a slam dunk. It's not, I just don't want people to be like, hey, look at that, we're getting money, type of thing.
No, and those were just thoughts about where we could, use that free cash that, we have, and it's an unusual amount of free cash, where it's makes the most sense to put that money away and save it for your future expenses, which are stabilization, and potentially OPEB if we get to that point. That's the kind of things that, when you have the free cash, you want to look at beefing up because they do help with your bond rating.
Wow. And they help when we get into a bind like we're getting into where there's just not enough money to support the budget. So
True. It's a rainy day fund and yeah. I mean, free cash though, I typically I don't want to put it into the operating budget because then you can't fund it the following year. So you're just kicking the can.
correct.
It'll be for one-time type things.
Yeah.
Capital, or like I said, beef stabilization, or what have you.
So
Okay,
there's nothing to vote on tonight for any other lines, just the big ones left are the schools.
I don't believe so. Let me just go back to the budget. Done so many versions. I just want to make sure that I have the correct. Let's see. What did we
If
have?
there's 30 somewhat at this point, do we at least want to start to prep for a potential second night?
oh, God.
I know, but I'd rather do it
Possible.
now than to scramble at the end. Good weather, bad weather, babysitting, maybe try and group them. So if there's, folks that are interested in,
We usually
I
have
would
about
hope that
40.
folks would be interested in all of them, but you know,
Right.
as we've seen in the past, you know, here comes the herd, you know, for a question, and then the question's answered, and then the herd leaves, you know, and then the next herd comes in, so.
Well, I mean, we've usually had about 40, 45, articles.
Yeah.
So if we end up cutting a few, hopefully it would be manageable.
Okay, so you have had, and like I said, I think I took out 7 or 8 that weren't, and then I had a question on a couple other ones I wanted to research. We may not, I think Munimod gave snow and ice deficit, but I have to look into that a little bit. And then there was one other one. I don't know that you have to have town meeting vote on the date of the election. I believe that authority is delegated to the select board to set the date, time, and location of the annual town election.
That's usually a week after.
Well, it only takes about 2 seconds. That's the last article to read. So,
True, they don't save a lot of time.
no, they're folding the chairs by that time.
Yeah, right. That's when you're trying to get people to do motion to adjourn. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
So, but going back to the budget, if we could, I did have a couple of line items. I didn't know, Chris, if you wanted to do those. Did you want to wait until you had all 3? I don't think they were
which ones
particularly
were they?
controversial. The audit, I was actually able to reduce because of our,
What number line item is that?
actually, if you'd like, I can share. Give me 1 second. That is 14. So I had 14. I had 36 for discussion, 74. So I only had 3. So it's up to you if you wanted to hold off or you wanted to talk about those items tonight.
I don't really see controversy with it. I don't know about you, Peg.
I'm going back in to look at them. I closed the window. Sorry.
It's all right. I can share too if that's
Why
helpful.
don't you do that?
I got it. All right. All right, so 14 is the audit,
That's a revote with a $6,000 reduction.
36. Oh, 36, Concom. Hey, that's a good one to discuss. Did you ever figure out what those additional 4 hours were going to be used for? And please be specific and don't tell me that they're going to be used for note taking.
Yes, so Carolyn and I met tonight and we actually came up with a good plan. I'm putting together what would be an amended job description. Basically, there's a couple things that I would like to see. One is I'd like to get a monthly report from Maddie so that we have, I have a better sense working with Carolyn of what is being worked on and the types of projects that are coming her way and matters that she's addressing. We talked about adding some additional responsibilities. And of course, I didn't grab those notes with me. But there are a number of additional responsibilities and they fall not under the note taking specifically, but under grant research, grant writing, additional training. She's actually a certified arborist and could be beneficial with the tree piece and taking some of that weight off of Fred. And she's actually gone on one tree ride along, I guess. And she's available on the weekends, which is helpful. There were a number of other items. So what I was going to do is do up kind of a revised job description and I can bring it back to you folks. I just met with her right before the meeting. So.
And I know when I was eavesdropping at a Concom meeting a couple weeks ago where Carolyn was there was talk of who Maddie reports to. And technically it's written now that it's you.
Yes.
TAU. So is that going to change? I mean, again, there's that concern of somebody reporting to someone who's just a volunteer appointed and not a town employee.
Right. And it's been that way. Actually, it's from the beginning. It's been written
Right.
that way in the job description. It's me and conservation. And that's part of the reason I talked to Carolyn about those monthly reports. So that way we sit down and we go over everything and there's more accountability and understanding of the workload and what the needs are and, basically the time that it's taking to accomplish all those items.
And for 74 expenses under transfer station, what are those?
So let me just get down to 74.
It's marginal. It's like a 2.3%, but
Yep. Okay. So transfer station, we actually hadn't approved transfer station's budget yet. That's a marginal increase in expenses that are contractual. And they've given me a list of a number of things that have basically gone up. Most of them have to do with their contractors, their fuel, I'm sorry, their contractual expenses as a result of increases to fuel, transport of materials, and recycling costs that have gone up. So because that falls under the 2.5%, I was comfortable moving forward with that. I did send in the question because I see that the wages are going up over 2.5. And so that's in blue because it means I'm waiting for more information back from them. I wasn't understanding if additional hours were being requested or why that was actually going up over the 2.5. So I'm just waiting for a response on that. So if you wanted, we could vote that whole one together when I get that answer.
yeah, I
Well,
mean, I'm
it
good with 14 only, but not the other two.
Sure.
But it was 14, 36, and 75. Are those the three?
74,
Yeah, I
Huh?
believe that's it.
74.
Yep, because then the other ones are still waiting for more info that Julie's working on recreation, obviously the schools and health insurance, hoping to have the last week of February. But everything else is pretty much shored up.
So you're not okay with the conservation peg?
Nope, not until I see a specific job description that I'm sure has to probably whiz its way through personnel. I just want a clear understanding of what's expected if the town is going to support 4 more hours of Maddie's time. And she's a very valuable resource, and that gal has a giant head of knowledge.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that she's being used in the way that she should be used and not, hey, I need notes. Hey, I need 15 copies.
Well, if
Hey,
you say that,
not an
I don't-
admin.
I don't think they'll do that if we say that. Are you
Well-
there at the meetings and seeing otherwise?
I would make an argument that I do think that she should do the minutes, and I'll explain why. I do think the minutes are highly technical. Conservation matters do go to court. They are questioned. And typically you do have someone from the actual department take minutes, and there isn't anybody else in that department.
Mhm.
So,
No, yeah, Chris, I go to those meetings, so that's why today, I am not supporting number 36 until I see some more stuff in writing. And then Kristen, as you said, if you want to lump 74 with 75, once you get back information on why the salaries went up. So the only one I'm okay with is the audit, and yay, you save money on that, so.
Well, there's
kudos
no
to you.
point in voting on it then, voting on the
Just one.
75 if there's only 2 of us.
Yep, all right.
so I'll
So-
bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Well, I mean, I would take a motion to approve number 14.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, and I'll make a motion to support line item 14, which is a reduction in cost for audits.
Okay, I'll second that. And we'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
And that's a vote. And I was just trying to get a couple things off the table for Scott.
Oh,
All right. Are we moving on to new business?
I think so.
So you're going to discuss for us the revisions to the senior work-off program?
Sure. So this one's actually quick. There are 2 issues that came up. One is that there's a residency requirement of 5 years, which is not a requirement under Mass General law. You do have to be a homeowner to participate in the program. So my recommendation would be to remove or that requirement to allow more people to participate in the program, or reduce it to something like perhaps a year. Because right now you have a number of new developments like Highland Ridge, where they haven't even been built for that long. So you have a lot of seniors coming in that, you know, have bought here, but don't qualify for senior work off and might be able to provide us with some valuable assistance. So there's that issue. And then there's another issue that I think we're going to need to have some more discussion on. And there's two ways to do senior work off: to do it by a dollar amount, which is capped at 1,500, or to do it by a number of hours, which is capped at 125 hours. The problem is minimum wage has gone up to $15 an hour. The town, through town meeting, selected the latter, which was the 125 hours. We have a budget of approximately $20,000 in assessor's overlay surplus. So if you do out the math on that, that comes out to about $1,875 in abatement per work off person. So that allows you to have 10 work off people in the program. So the problem with doing it by the hours and not the dollar cap is that the more minimum wage continues to increase, you're paying people more, but you're not able to have as many people in the program. So you're kind of paying more for, you get, you know, some additional hours from existing people, but you're getting less and less volunteers over time. I've been speaking with Victoria. She is here as well. And I've been speaking with Peggy Sardell. If we were to change that cap from 125 hours to a maximum abatement amount of 1,500, it would require a town meeting vote. It's not something that the select board can change, but my understanding is that the select board can remove or reduce that residency requirement, because that is not a Mass General law requirement. So overall, I think we need to get a little bit more information on this one before we're kind of ready, but I thought I'd see what your thoughts were on that, because I can see it kind of either way. You know, you get more hours, but less people, you know, so just wanted to kind of get a sense of where you all were at. And Victoria's here too, if you had any questions for her.
So if you just, do you have to put the number of hours and the dollar amount, or can you just use the dollar amount?
It's either or. So we chose to do back in, I think it was 18 or 15, I can't remember, but it was through a time. I mean, we chose to do the hours, to cap the hours at 125, but we have to pay minimum wage. So, you know,
Right.
that was back when minimum wage was what, I don't know, $9 an hour. Now it's 15. So you
Okay.
actually have to pay people more than 1,500 if you do the hours.
Right. Well, I would assume you'd have to pay the minimum wage, but you wouldn't have to go back and look at the policy as often if you just capped it at a certain dollar amount. That seems to make more sense to me.
And, you know, technically you don't have to for the hours either, because you just basically reduce your number of volunteers and you increase the payment to the volunteers that you can have. You don't have to change it, but.
Well, that's true, but you know, I think we're not very good at saying no when people want to volunteer.
Well, and I think this community has a rich tradition of volunteers,
Yeah.
and, you know, I think you want to be able to encourage that and have people fill in on some of the gaps that we don't have employees in, or areas where we don't have employees.
Yeah, I mean, you may have to look at this every year, because for a while there, minimum wage was going up every year.
Right. So it's definitely something worth discussion. We were concerned about perhaps going over the cap and where will we get extra funding from, but basically, you know, we have 9 people on it right now. So that does not put us over that $20,000, and the $20,000 at June, and Victoria and I spoke today, that is an estimate, because it all comes out of overlay. So, you know, if it's a little bit over under, it's not that big of a deal, but we can't all of a sudden start spending $25,000 or $30,000 out of it, because that's not, you know, what we're budgeting for. So it's sort of an issue of, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of another, but it's, do you want more people in it, or do you want people to get more hours and more money?
I think it's I don't like to turn people away. However, there needs to be a job for them to do also.
Right. And one of the things I asked Victoria was how many people are there? And I guess right now, I think there was only one or two other people or one person that hadn't been matched up. But I understand in the past, there have been people that haven't been able to be matched, whether it was for lack of funds or just departments didn't have the need. I think there's a combination of both going on there. So what I think I'd like to do is, have, if you guys want to kind of think on this, and I'll do a little more digging and we can kind of come back. Because we're okay, we were actually thinking we'd have to make a change because we were going to go over potentially the $20,000, and then where was that funding going to come from? And that was going to be an issue, but we're actually okay. We figured that out today. So we don't have to take any action at this time, but it is something that we need to think about long-term, how we want to run the program.
Yeah, well, and I think it makes sense. It's kind of like putting FMLA specifically in every contract. You should just put the link to, the website for it. So as it changes, you don't have to keep changing your policies.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was thinking as far as this is concerned. But Peg, do you got anything to add?
I'd love to see a PowerPoint presentation by Victoria.
Oh, come on.
Just kidding. Just kidding. She's a whiz at them. She's awesome.
She
She's
is.
full of information, but Victoria, I'm kidding. I don't need a PowerPoint presentation. But I know you're Jones and you're already working on one, I can tell.
She's going to have one for you tomorrow. So
I know she will. I know she will. I'm all right with that.
I'm kidding, Victoria.
The resident requirement, again, we just had the discussion about taxes and how they're about to just go. So, if somebody's moving to town because Berlin's a great town, kids maybe live here, they're coming back. If there's anything that we can do to help them, that's fine with that, and reducing it to 100 hours. Again, the program is limited. I'll be applying when I retire, so save a spot for me.
You may want, as we're talking about the budget going up because of, the increase in education, you want to be able to offer
Correct, something.
as many people as you can who qualify for these types of positions somewhere to work.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So, so do you wanted to defer this at this point?
I think so, with kind of in light of the new information we got today. I think doing a little more digging and discussion, but just put it on your radar, something to think about, and we'll come back to it.
I did notice that the assessor's account did have, I know we have to be careful because what if somebody wants an abatement and whatnot, but it's quite hefty right now.
It's healthy. Molly is estimating, though, our ATB potential liability to be almost $500,000. So yeah, that's the reason we want to be careful.
Yeah.
Hopefully we wouldn't end up with all of those cases going in that direction and being, ruled against us where, we'd have to abate. But there is that liability out there.
Right. And with the malls not doing well and all.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Then we'll put that on the back burner for the moment.
Okay.
Perfect. And the next thing was I've been doing the fire negotiations with either I guess it was Margaret the last time, and they've just written a letter today. The John Polino sent an email today. I did see that they want to start fire negotiations again. So Kristen and I decided that we would put this on here just to confirm. I would like to continue in negotiations. I'm available whenever they want to have a meeting. So I just wanted to run that by you, Peg, and see if that's okay.
You know how I like a good fight. with this. Not a fight, it's an active debate where people present information on both sides. And with Scott not here, I mean, has he chimed in? Has he voiced his opinion as, yes, I want in, no, I don't?
Well, I think the last time when we talked about it, before the last negotiations, it was a matter of, I was the one who was available during the day. Because the negotiations generally take place during the day. And he wouldn't be available.
I'll ponder. I'll let you know at the end of the meeting. I'll ponder. The rest of the meeting will be like 5 more minutes, so I gotta. hurry up and ponder. Okay,
Well, I mean, you know. Okay.
I know. You know what? And I would love to do it, you know, especially as we've seen negotiations, you know, have their good days and their bad days.
The one thing that I keep close when I'm doing negotiations, though, is I represent the board. I'm not going
I know
to
you do.
give my opinion. I'm going to give, I know this will not pass, you know, or this is okay. You know, that's how I deal with negotiations. So just to let you know.
All right, I'll keep pondering. Give
Okay.
me 5 minutes. I'll keep pondering.
All right. So then we've got board questions, comments, and liaison updates. And I don't think I had any. I did not get a chance to attend the ZBA meeting this week, but that's because they were not going to have any hearings. So, you?
So and I wrote it in my notes. So Eric's comment about the $2,500 from the Traffic Advisory Committee, where is that gonna go in an upcoming discussion? Next meeting? Meeting after? Is the next meeting the one with finance? So that one's gonna be a doozy of a meeting on the 27th. So basically, we really probably won't do anything else.
It's with CPA and finance. They're both on there.
Yeah, we
It'll make it even longer.
we just deferred another, you know, a bunch of things too. Hopefully, maybe we need to rethink that because I know that probably will be a bit of a discussion.
All right, so the 25 for traffic advisory for solar, that's just at an upcoming meeting, date to be determined. Is there a time frame that needs to be decided by?
For this year?
Chief's still
Sure.
here.
Is he?
He is. He's hanging out.
He should have run.
Because Chief, now I'm going to ask you what your time frame is.
That's right. See, I told Eric I wasn't gonna ask him questions, so there you go.
Here he comes.
All right, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I mean, the time frame, there is no time frame. It's when we can get the money, funds, and ship them out. I mean, I understand, you know, the financial aspects of the job, and you know, that's why we just merely voted as the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee to agree to put it up to the select board to make the ultimate decision. And you know, it's not the greatest times of the year, being in the, you know, I wish it was July or August. You know, when we knew where we stood and what we had. You know, I will tough it out for another 4 months and swap out batteries. And you know, wait to see where we're at financially.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, oh my God, we needed this in a month, you know, type of
No,
decision.
no,
Okay.
we've lucked out this winter. There's only been maybe 3 times we haven't been able to swap out batteries because of weather. You know, last winter was probably 6-7 weeks we lost with those traffic signs, but this winter has been nothing. So been
Okay.
very successful at it.
Okay,
So
All right.
it sounds like we might need to look to put that on like town meeting. Like an FY23 budget transfer out of existing funds, just look at where we're at May town meeting. Can you
Yeah.
send me that info, Chief?
Yeah. I'll get updated quotes because, like I said, mine I think are 3 months old, and I've noticed that quotes are usually good for about 30 days now. So
Yeah. Okay.
or maybe ARPA.
We could look at ARPA.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I think we are gonna have some wages left over, so I don't mind, see as well, rather than touching ARPA.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you, Eric. All right, so that's one question. The ADA stuff, I am working with Victoria, take some of the burden off Kristen and June to map everything out and figure out what's going on. I was able to speak to a plumber today. He's gonna come sometime next week to take a look at the pipes that need to be wrapped, and he mentioned since we have to adjust the water because it shuts off in a whopping 2 seconds and not 10, that we're gonna need new faucets to be able to do that. So coming up with yet another worksheet that I'll send to Victoria to look at, but we're getting there. And also, there's the discussion of new handles and hooks and things like that. And instead of, asking Fred to do an inventory or sending somebody in to do an inventory, you know what? We have the budget, just go up to Lowe's, go to Amazon, we're not going to get taxed because it's a town thing. How much are 10 coat hooks and, whatever else I wrote down on the list. So I think our expenses are going to be minimal for ADA. So that's chugging. Signs, everyone wants a sign. I spoke with John, sign guy from Assabet, and, given that he needs to juggle his schedule with who's watching his kids, what kids are coming out, Assabet to Berlin, he's going to come up with some mock ideas for us to look at. He has the email that Kristen and I and Mr. Hanks and Fred agreed on dimensions, and I told him black on white, white on black. We don't know, we'll leave that to him. So as soon as he gets those mock-ups to us, we can figure out which one we may want, and then he can do a real one, and then he'll go on with the process. So that's chugging. Concom, I understand that the walk with Verizon cell tower guy did happen yesterday, or last Monday, one of those, and to expect a proposal from Verizon cell tower guy. I guess he found 2 spots on Rattlesnake Hill that they could potentially use. So keep up with that. For the Woosocks, the food pantry did agree to be our nonprofit. So I let my guy at the Woosocks know, confirmed September 12th. So they're going to be busily setting up a link for tickets, so that more information to come. We'll figure out marketing and how to get the word out for that. So that's chugga.
You say September 12th, Peg?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
It was either the 12th or the 13th. I picked the 12th and figuring if I was too late in telling him the 12th, that the 13th would be open. So September 12th, Woosocks. All right. And then, so that's it for my updates. So Chris, a question on the fire contract discussions. Is that Zoom or in person?
Well, I think it was Zoom the last time. I don't know. It may be in person this time because, they're in March, the Zoom may go away.
Okay.
Yeah, they're working on new legislation, which should hopefully pass, but if not, it does end. Well, that's not subject to open meeting law, though. So you could technically still have Zoom because you only have one select board member there.
Well, I know the police were asking to do in person
Okay.
at the last couple of negotiation meetings. So I don't know about the fire.
Yeah, just having gotten it today, I haven't really even had any preliminary conversations or anything about it.
I mean, Zoom I could do, in person might be tough. All right, for now, I will acquiesce and say, go ahead, Chris, and keep going with fire contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right. So if we're done with the board questions and comments, I guess, are we doing this executive session then?
Yep.
Okay. So the board's going to enter an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements, which is to review and approve prior executive session meeting minutes, and we will only return to open session thereafter only to adjourn. So I guess we need a roll call vote. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Okay, and the same with open session. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye. See you on the 27th.